Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste everybody. Good morning here in New York. It's a cold and almost wintry morning. But then in other parts of the world, so it's evening somewhere and night elsewhere. Because of the pandemic conditions, we have only a few people, very few people here in the center itself, but hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world watching this on the internet. So in this Ask Swami session, we have questions which are sent in from our virtual audience from all over the world. And I know that we cannot answer many of the questions, in fact most of the questions, but there's a fair selection which we do. We have a team, very good team of volunteers who work on it and select some questions, and we try to make it as representative a sample as possible. It is not necessary that all the questions have to be selected and answered. It is rather that the teaching here is very simple and direct. In most of these questions, that central teaching comes up again and again. So it's good to listen to the question and the answer of the question, even if it's not your question. So you're not waiting, when will my question come up? So let's listen to the question and the answer to the question. Often it works for us, even if we were not the person who asked that question. So Diane will read out the questions we have this morning.
Good morning, Swamiji. The first question is from Deepak N. And it's in 3 parts. How does the consciousness manifest in living and in the non-living? Tree, plant, stone, sand, air, elements, atoms, etc. 2. I understand everything is an appearance in my consciousness, but can I experience consciousness in everything? And 3, what is needed to see the underlying truth that everything is consciousness?
All right. It's a very profound question. The first question is, how does consciousness manifest in people, in animals, in plants, or as he said, in sand and in atoms? Elements. So what we think of as living and non-living. How does consciousness manifest in all of that? Think of it this way. The ultimate reality, Brahman, in Advaita Vedanta, is existence consciousness, isness awareness, an unlimited isness awareness, being and consciousness. Now, that is manifested in this world. The world is a world of manifestation. That isness awareness is appearing as this world. When it appears as this world, through names and forms, some of these names and forms, in fact all of the names and forms, manifest existence, otherwise they wouldn't exist. So everything in this universe is manifesting the existence aspect of Brahman. The ultimate reality is existence consciousness, isness awareness. The isness is manifest in everything, simply because everything that we see exists. The existence of everything is borrowed from Brahman. So everything that we know in this world, everything that we experience in this world, has the common characteristic that it exists, and that existence is borrowed from Brahman. The existence aspect, the isness aspect of Brahman, is manifested in everything as their existence. Tables exist, chairs exist, human beings exist, animals, and as he says, sand exists, atoms exist. So existence is manifested in everything. Now there is some of these names and forms which exist, which borrow existence from Brahman. Some of these names and forms have the unique capacity of manifesting consciousness. So they exist and they are also aware. So what are they? Minds. Wherever you find a mind, in us, in animals, even in like a prototypical form, even in plants, lower living beings. Why is it that these things have minds? So this mind is a part of what we call the subtle body. In Vedanta, we talk about the physical body, these ones which exist, and there's a subtle body which not only exists, but it manifests consciousness. All bodies manifest existence, otherwise they wouldn't exist. But some of these bodies, which are subtle bodies, sukshma sharira, they manifest existence as well as consciousness, especially the mind aspect of it. The subtle body is composed of prana, life, and what we call the antakarana, the inner instrument, mind, intellect, memory, ego. So this mind, intellect, memory, ego, they manifest consciousness also. They exist and they are aware. Now this is actually not as complicated or strange as it seems. Think of it this way. The sun is shining. There is heat and light pouring out from it. When sunlight falls on something, it heats up. But some of these things which heat up also have the extra capacity of forming an image of the sun. Think about it. Sun shining on rock or sand. The rock or the sand becomes hot. It heats up. But the reflection of the sun is not formed there. But the same sun shining on a drop of water. Not only the water heats up, but you find a tiny image of the sun forming there. The same sun shining on the lake. You find not only the lake is warmed by the sunlight, but you see the sun reflected in the lake. A mirror. So when you hold up a mirror to the sunlight, the mirror becomes warm, no doubt, but also the reflection of the sun is formed there. Similarly, all things, just like everything heating up in sunlight, all names and forms borrow existence from Brahman. Some names and forms, subtle bodies, minds, they borrow not only existence, but awareness from Brahman, consciousness. So minds have existence and awareness. Now the question is, how is consciousness manifest in everything? The answer is this. Consciousness is manifest in the places where they are manifest. Consciousness is manifest through minds, through the peculiar names and forms called minds, which are part of the subtle body. Wherever you find mind, or even more broadly, wherever you find a subtle body, sukshma sharira, you will find the presence of consciousness. You will find evidence of consciousness to some extent. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the quality of the subtle body, depending on the quality of the mind. Now, look at your examples. Let me talk about it in terms of your examples. Tell me some of the examples.
Tree, plant, stone, sand.
All right, let's stop right there. Trees and plants, animals, living beings. So living beings, obviously they exist, they are manifesting existence, but they are also manifesting consciousness to some extent, because they have life. Life means prana is there, so the subtle body is there, and the subtle body includes the mind to some extent. So an animal or a human being might have more manifestation, more play of consciousness, because the mind is more manifest in a human being and has full play there, and in a tree, a plant, less so, but still some evidence of consciousness. Whereas stone, sand, it exists. So it is borrowing existence from Brahman, but it does not manifest the consciousness aspect of Brahman, because there is only the gross body, there is only the physical body. The name and form is of a physical body. There is no subtle body within that. So it is not what we will call a living being. A living being is, in Sanskrit, it's called a jiva. A thing becomes a living being when that thing is associated, when a subtle body comes into that thing. So matter becomes a living matter when life, subtle body includes life, prana, comes into it. And when the subtle body is there, consciousness is manifest. When do we say somebody has died? When is their death? So the living body dies when the subtle body goes out of it. Then it's no longer living because prana has gone out of it and the mind is carried by the subtle body. It's gone. So notice something. Dead body is still existing. It exists as a dead body. It's not that it vanishes into thin air. So existence aspect is still manifested there. But the consciousness, life aspect is not manifested there because the subtle body has gone from it. That's how we define death in Indian philosophy. Now, so to sum up, the straight answer to that is, how is consciousness manifested? Understand first, Brahman is consciousness existence. Existence manifested by all names and forms. And consciousness manifested by some names and forms, which manifest existence plus consciousness. And those names and forms have to be subtle bodies, including the mind. Okay. Now, let's go deeper into this phenomenon of consciousness. He is asking this question, I understand that all things appear in my consciousness. He said that. And but how is it that that how do I know that consciousness is in everything? And the third part of the question was that how do I know, what is needed to know that everything is in consciousness?
What is needed to see the underlying truth that everything
is consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. Let's put them together. Everything appears in consciousness. He says, I get it. And the second thing he said was, how do I know that consciousness is in everything? And finally, everything is consciousness. Okay. If you have seen the dialogue with Rupert Spira yesterday, he said something very interesting. It's worth noticing that. What he said was, when you say something like this, that everything, that the consciousness is in everything, he says, no. It's not that consciousness is in everything. It's not that there is consciousness in plants, animals. And then he said, humorously, it gets worse. It's not even that there is consciousness in human beings. That is making a mistake. What is the mistake? As he said yesterday, that we are assuming that there are such things existing by themselves like plants, animals, human beings, and in them there is something called consciousness. It is the primary mistake of assuming that there is a reality called a body, and in that body there is something called consciousness. Rather, what Vedanta says is that there is consciousness, and in it appears the world and all bodies, plants and animals and human bodies. What Vedanta wants us to do is that we are conscious. Everybody knows this. You don't need Vedanta to know that. But our mistake is that we think we are bodies with consciousness. What am I? I am this thing. And in me there is this nice process called consciousness. No. Vedanta says, primarily you are consciousness. And you are conscious of a body. Sometimes you are not conscious of a body. When you fall asleep and dream, you are conscious of other things, not the physical body which is sleeping. Sometimes you are not conscious of anything at all. A blankness, deep sleep. You are consciousness itself. And that consciousness sometimes illumines, reveals things in the waking state, in the dream state, and sometimes it reveals nothing in the deep sleep state, but all the time you continue to be consciousness. So this entire universe, including bodies, including minds, appears in consciousness. And so, instead of thinking that, how can I know that there is consciousness in everything, rather think about it this way. As you said, that I am clear that that all things appear in my consciousness. Put it this way, all things appear in me, the consciousness, not my consciousness. You're not something apart from consciousness. The language is subtle. When you say my consciousness, sometimes the idea creeps in that I am the body with consciousness. My liver, my heart, my lungs, my consciousness. No. I am consciousness. And in me appears everything. All that I know appears in me, the consciousness. You said it's clear to you. If it is appearing in you, if something is appearing in you, the consciousness, How is it appearing in you? What is the relationship between you and the thing appearing in you? Is it like a table and this clock? There is a table, and on the table we have put a clock. Are you consciousness, and on top of you something has been put? Is consciousness like a bowl in which nuts are put in there? No. Are you like, there is a world which comes and is put inside you? Or is it like, say, a movie screen in which a movie appears? Or even better, like a dream in which things, people, places appear, but they are nothing other than the dreaming mind. Similarly, things appear in consciousness, they are nothing other than consciousness. So what are those appearances constituted of? They are constituted of consciousness. They appear in you, they appear to be different from you. That's how you are able to experience them. The people and the places and the things that we see in our dreams, where do they appear? They are not appearing outside. They are appearing in the mind of the dreamer. And yet they appear to be outside. That's what makes a dream possible. What makes a dream possible? I must be able to see the things in a dream as if it is the waking world. As if I am in this waking world, I am seeing people and things outside me, although the whole thing is happening in me, in the mind of the dreamer. If it is happening in the mind of the dreamer, all the people in the dream, all the places in the dream, all the sky and the earth in the dream, what are they made of? They are made of the mind of the dreamer. They are made of mind stuff. People in the dream are made of mind stuff. Buildings in the dream, not made of concrete. They're made of mind. This is not difficult to understand. Everybody will admit the things in my dream are all made up in the mind. They're made of mind stuff itself. They're made of imagination and thought. They're images in the mind. The lake is not made of water, it's made of mind. The buildings are not made of concrete, it's made of mind. The sky is not made of space, it's made of mind. The bodies are not made of living matter, it's made of mind. In the dream. I'm not saying anything extraordinary here, it's just a matter of fact. Exactly in the same way, everything that you see in consciousness is made of consciousness. Made means it's an appearance in consciousness, nothing other than consciousness. Just looks different, looks like an object. Then only you can see it. Therefore, when you say, how do I see that consciousness is in everything? In this sense. Consciousness is in everything in this sense, that everything is made up of nothing other than consciousness. And that is the answer to the third question as well. How do I know that everything is consciousness? Everything is consciousness with names and forms. How do you know that everything is in the mind, in the dream is just mind? When you wake up, you realize it was all imagined in the mind. When you yourself say, everything that I experience appears to me in consciousness, it simply means that everything is made of consciousness. Consciousness is everything. The difficulty comes why the difficulty is there, is that when we think of everything is there and somehow consciousness must be in it, how will I know that? And there is a solid world outside and somehow I have to know that there is consciousness inside. No, you have already said that this so-called solid world is an appearance in you, the consciousness. Then ask yourself the question, the things which appear to you in consciousness, what are those things made of? Then you will realize they are made of nothing but consciousness. Yeah.
The next question is from Punit M. How can we say consciousness illumines deep sleep? In Vedanta, the counter question is usually, who slept? Or how do we know we slept peacefully? Surely it is the absence of consciousness illumining awakeness that invariably leads us to believe and infer that we slept soundly. I didn't wake up, so I guess I slept deeply, rather than it being a conscious experience.
How do we know that there is consciousness in deep sleep? This is an important question in Vedanta. Why do we feel that there is no consciousness in deep sleep? You know where this question stems from? It stems from an inadequate separation of consciousness and mind. We think we have understood what consciousness is, but we're still thinking about the mind. That's why When the mind shuts down, there's no thoughts, feelings, no ego, no activity of the mind. We think there's no consciousness because we still have not separated consciousness adequately from the mind in our understanding. When the mind is active, we feel its consciousness is there. When we are awake and in this waking world, we feel it's conscious. Yeah, I mean, we are conscious very clearly. Even dreams, we feel we are conscious because we are aware of dreams. But when the mind shuts down, we are not aware of anything. No objects come before us. Just a blankness. We think there is no consciousness. It's just blank. What's blank? The object of your experience is blank. Blankness or the absence of objects, that is what is being experienced. Now, why is it so difficult to acknowledge this? Because at the root there is this inadequate separation of consciousness and mind. Now, why is it so important to appreciate this? That there's consciousness in deep sleep in our waking state. You don't have to fall asleep to admit it. You have to wake in our waking state. If we admit that there is, if we can clearly grasp that there is consciousness even when I have fallen asleep, the mind has fallen asleep, then we'll realize what consciousness is. Then the separation between mind and consciousness will be clear, in our understanding at least. We will see that I am not the body, I am not mind also. What awareness is in itself, the pure subject, a clarity about that will dawn. That's why consciousness in deep sleep is an important subject in Advaita Vedanta. Now, to deal with the particular objection, it's an ancient objection that Vedanta says, yes, there is consciousness in deep sleep because after waking up, I felt that I had experienced complete peace. I did not know anything. I rested peacefully. So that is an experience. If there's an experience, there must have been consciousness. So one objection is, no, why should that be an experience? It could be an inference. I was not awake, therefore I guess I was sleeping. That's what he says? I was not?
I didn't wake up, so I guess I slept deeply.
I didn't wake up, so I was not awake. I was not even dreaming. That also has to be added. Therefore I guess I slept deeply. This is an inference. On 2 counts, this is wrong. This has to be rejected on 2 counts. One is on the grounds of experience. Another one is on the grounds of logic. What is the grounds of experience for rejecting this inference? When we wake up and we look back means think about our just preceding experience of sleeping. Do we perform this kind of an inference? So, I fell asleep at such and such time and I had some dreams. And then I did not have any dreams. I was not awake. Therefore, I must have been in deep sleep. Do we perform that kind of a logical, do we have that experience of performing an inference, going through an exercise of logic just after waking up? No. Phenomenologically, what is phenomenology? Tracking our experience. How did it feel? Think about it. How did it feel? Did it feel like you are doing an exercise in logic? Or did it feel like that I was not awake, I was not dreaming, I guess I must have been sleeping, therefore I was asleep. Did you do that? Or did you feel I had deep sleep? I slept, like we in English, I slept like a log. I didn't know anything. In Bengali they say ghumiye kada. I slept like mud. Why would you say that? Because you have to imagine it's not like New York. It's 100 degrees in the shade and 100% humidity. So if you fall asleep deeply in that kind of humidity, you'll feel like mud when you wake up. So notice, it's language which you find in every culture of the world. Which means deep sleep is something, a phenomenon known to everybody in the world. All human beings, we experience this. I mean, even animals would experience it. So we slept deeply. It's a phenomenological experience. It's something that we directly, subjectively experience, not logical exercise. Okay. On the grounds of experience, we reject that it was an inference. It's actually an experience. So what? If it's an experience, there must have been consciousness. How can you have an experience without consciousness? What experienced it? Who experienced this experience of deep sleep? So there must have been consciousness. All right. Second, on logical grounds also we must reject it. Why? Inference works this way. In ancient Indian logic, the inference worked this way. there is smoke on the hill. Therefore, I infer there is fire on the hill. See, I can see smoke, but I can't see fire. How did you infer? You saw smoke. How did you infer there's fire? Because in my kitchen and at various times, I have seen smoke and fire together. Wherever I saw smoke, there was fire. So now I'm seeing smoke. See, wherever I saw smoke, I saw fire too, together. I saw both. Now I am seeing only smoke. It's so far away. But I am inferring there is fire. Or a better example here in Manhattan. You don't see smoke on a hill too often here. But you see smoke in the distance. And the fire trucks are there immediately, within minutes. How do they know? They don't see the fire maybe, but they see smoke pouring out of the top floors of a high rise. And so the fire trucks rush there because they know where there is smoke, there is fire. How do they know that? Because they have seen both together, smoke and fire. This is in Nyaya language is called Vyapti. English is even worse, invariable concomitance. Just it means the two things go together. All right. So what? Now you are carrying out an inference about deep sleep. What inference are you carrying out? In deep sleep, you are inferring there was deep sleep and therefore there was no consciousness. Deep sleep, there was no consciousness. That's what you're trying to infer. Or you go a little further back. You said that I was not awake, therefore I was in deep sleep. That part we have dismissed, experience part. So you take this up. The deep sleep, there is no consciousness. But this logic will not work. Why? So what is the logic in this? That in deep sleep there is no consciousness because that there is no experience in deep sleep. I did not experience anything, therefore there is no consciousness. The sign of consciousness is that there must be some kind of experience. This is a blankness. But this logic will not work. It has to be rejected on logical grounds. Why? Because where did you experience both together? To say absence of experience means that there is no consciousness, then you must have experienced sometime there is no experience and there is no consciousness together. You must have experienced. Then only you can say, look, here is a case. Just like smoke on the hill. Here is a case, deep sleep, no experience. Therefore, there must be no consciousness in deep sleep. How do you know that? In some case earlier, you must have seen no experience and no consciousness together. But if you have seen no experience and no consciousness together, if you have experienced it, there must have been consciousness. You cannot establish that vyapti, invariable concomitance, going together, no experience, no consciousness, you cannot establish that without consciousness. So the inference fails. What comes of it? What's the upshot? In deep sleep, there is consciousness. Notice, waking, dreaming, deep sleep are not dependent on consciousness. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep are the states of the mind. They are not states of consciousness. States of the mind. Mind is awake, using instruments of knowledge, the sense organs, contacting a world, waking. Mind has fallen asleep and dreaming within itself without contacting an external world, dreaming. Mind totally ceases to operate, deep sleep. Consciousness, illumining the waking mind, illumining the dreaming mind, illumining the sleeping mind. Waking mind, experience of sense objects. And of course thoughts. Dreaming mind, no experience of sense objects. Consciousness reveals activities of the mind. Sleeping mind, consciousness reveals the dormant state of the mind, blank. Consciousness is one and the same. Yeah.
The next question is from Anushrat S. In the 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad, Turiya is pointed towards by telling us what it is not. The mantra starts by telling us that it is not the state of waking, dreaming, or deep sleep. Then the mantra states that it is neither consciousness nor unconsciousness. I have found in the translation of the mantra by various Advaita acharyas that this statement is modified to state that it is neither simple consciousness nor is it unconsciousness. The introduction of the word simple does not come from the literal translation of the mantra, but appears to be added so that the author can argue that Turiyam is the same as consciousness, while the Upanishad seems to explicitly state that it is not consciousness. Can you please clarify this point?
That might be a problem with the translation. If you go to the original of the seventh mantra, na anta pragyam na bahish pragyam na ubhayata pragyam na pragyana ghanam na pragyam. That's the first sentence of the seventh mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. What does it say? Na anta pragyam. It is not the dream state turned inwards, anta pragyam. It is not na bahish pragyam. It's not the waking state, not turned outwards. What is not? We're talking about the Turiya, the ultimate reality. So it's not the dream state, it's not the externalized waking state. Na ubhayata pragyam, not some in between. No, other states may be possible. Somebody is hallucinating, somebody may be high, somebody may be, something like that may be there. None of them. Na pragyana ghanam, not that state also where in deep sleep, where the distinction between subject-object is lost. It's just one uniform blankness. Not even that state. Na pragyam, not even the state of knowing everything all at once. Now this is an interpretation. It just says na pragyam. So it's not that state of knowing everything all at once. Shankaracharya's interpretation. So that's the state of the mind becoming omnipotent, like omniscient, like Ishvara, God. So is it like all-knowing? No, not even that. That knowing nothing at all, just like a stone. No, it says no, not even that, not inert or insentient like a stone. So what, putting it together, it's not what you experience in, not the state of the waking, not the state of the dream, not the state of the waking, not something in between, not deep sleep, not even the omniscience of God, or not even, or not just simply not thinking, insentient, dull, dead matter, none of them. Now the problem is with the word pragyam. Does it mean consciousness? No. It means consciousness plus mind, or consciousness channeled through consciousness limited by the mind. Then only, when you say anta pragyam, mind turned inwards, consciousness illumining the mind turned inwards, dream state. Bahish pragyam, the mind turned outwards through the sense organs, consciousness illumining that is called waking state. So, what is being denied is the dream state, as you said, the waking state, the deep sleep state, in-between states, all states of the mind. Omniscient, omniscience, just pragyam. You are right, that's an interpretation by Shankaracharya. But again, pragyam by itself does not mean consciousness. He's not denying consciousness. And this is where somebody might have translated, I don't know, some translator, that it is not consciousness, not simple consciousness. No. That's not the correct translation. It is not the omniscient state of the mind illumined by consciousness. A good example will be like this. Very simple example to understand this first sentence. The example I use of the golden ornaments. So there is a bracelet made of gold. There's a necklace made of gold. And then there is, say, a ring made of gold. 3 ornaments. And the question is, what is gold? What is gold? Is gold exactly the bracelet? You can't say it is. Because the necklace is also gold. The ring is also gold. It doesn't have to be a bracelet to be gold. Even the bracelet, it was gold before you made a bracelet out of it. So the bracelet as such, is it gold? No. Not being a bracelet is not the same as being gold. So is it the necklace? No, for the same reasons. Is it a ring? No, for the same reasons. Then, is it all of them together? Necklace, ring, and bracelet all together, all the jewels, all the ornaments together, is that gold? No, because gold can exist without being an ornament at all. It's not that the whole array of jewelry is, that's what's called gold, not at all. Then you throw away all the ornaments, is it something else is called gold? No, not even that. We'll all say, wait, but it's basically the reality in and through all the ornaments. Correct. So when we say that the bracelet is not gold, we know exactly what is being meant. The name bracelet is not gold. The form of the bracelet is not gold. The use you do with the bracelet, you put it on your wrist, that's not gold. But the reality of the bracelet is gold. The substance, what it is made of, that is gold. But then that's the same substance in the necklace. It's the same substance in the ring. It's the same substance in all the jewels together, all the ornaments together. And if you throw away the ornaments, you won't get that substance. Similarly, consciousness is one and the same in the waking state. So when you say it is not the dream state, it's not the waking state, it's not the deep sleep, true, it is not the states themselves. But it is the reality in and through each state. Without consciousness, none of these states are possible. The states may come and go, but consciousness is one and the same all through. So when you say na pragyam, so that might mean the mind itself may be in its omniscient state, like the mind of God, like Shankaracharya says in his commentary. But what is meant here is not the mind; it's the consciousness underlying, which is consciousness, which is Turiyam, not the mind. It's not the dreaming mind, not the waking mind, not the deep sleep mind. It's not the omniscient mind, not the no mind also. It is one and the same reality lying, which is in and through everything. That is what is meant in that 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. Yeah.
This is from Prakash N., who's in Cyprus. Brahman is described as Satchitananda in Indian scriptures. Among them, existence seems to be most important, as both consciousness and bliss need existence. Is it fair to say that Brahman is existence with consciousness and bliss?
So Brahman is described as existence, consciousness, bliss in Vedanta, and existence seems to be most important, seems very logical. That to be conscious or to be in bliss, you first need to exist. And so can we say Brahman is existence with consciousness and bliss? No. No. Brahman is existence, consciousness, bliss. Not something which exists, which has consciousness and bliss. Why do we think that way? That seems logical. Because we are thinking in terms of objects and bodies. Here is a body. Obviously the body exists. And sometimes it may be conscious, sometimes it may be in a coma, but other times it is conscious. And this conscious body, sometimes it is, rarely once in a while, it is expressing bliss as expressed by a smiley face. I am in bliss. So I exist, I am conscious and in bliss. But this is not what is meant by Brahman being existence, consciousness, bliss. The discussion we had in the first question about Brahman being isness awareness, and the isness, the existence aspect of it is manifested in all things which exist. They borrow existence from Brahman. And in some of the things which exist, consciousness is manifest. Which are those things? The subtle bodies, sukshma shariras. They both exist and are conscious. But the isness awareness, it continues. Notice, even in the dead body, it is still that same isness awareness. But just the isness is manifest as dead body is. But the awareness is not manifest anymore. You can't say the dead body is aware, it will be alive or it will be a ghost. Why is not the awareness manifest? Because the subtle body has left. The subtle body is required to make manifest both isness and awareness. So similarly, in this case, Brahman is existence and consciousness, isness, awareness. In all the bodies, in all existing things, the isness aspect is manifest as this thing is, that thing is, table is, human being is, building is, sky is, earth is, atom is, galaxy is. Isness is manifested. Manifest means what? It borrows. And in human beings or in living beings which have the subtle body, not only is, but is aware. The awareness aspect of Brahman becomes manifest. I gave the example of the sun shining. Wherever the sun shines, it heats it up. Heat is borrowed by every entity on which the sun shines. But only some of them become illumined and they form a reflection of the shining sun. So those things, like a mirror or like water, not only they become heated up, but they also borrow the reflection of the sun. The little image of the sun is formed there. Similarly, all entities borrow existence from Brahman. But some of those entities borrow not only existence, but also awareness from Brahman. But the existence that you find in all the entities of the world is not Brahman as such, is a borrowed existence. The awareness that you find in all of us is not Brahman as such, is a borrowed awareness. It comes and goes. It's more or less, depending on the mind itself. Now what about Ananda, bliss? Again, when we find some existing aware entities like us, like the questionnaire, sometimes you may feel happy. So is that Brahman? So existence, awareness, and that existing awareness is happy. I exist, I am aware, now sometimes I am happy. So is that Ananda, is that bliss? No, that's a borrowing of that Ananda. That's a fraction, that's a reflection, that's a limitation of the existing Ananda. So what is the original nature of Ananda? That infinite existence awareness is Ananda. The infinity, the unlimitedness of that existence awareness, of that isness awareness is Ananda. I am translating from the Upanishad. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. What is the ultimate reality Brahman? Satyam, isness. Jnanam, awareness. Anantam, unlimitedness or infinity. Infinite existence. What is infinite existence? Not limited. What do you mean by not limited existence? What is limited existence? Born, existing, dying. Limited. It came into being, it dies. Unlimited existence never dies. Never comes into being, always is. And awareness, jnanam, unlimited awareness. What is limited awareness? The awareness that we feel in our thoughts and perceptions. Each thought shines briefly in our minds and is gone. Each perception, I see, I hear, I smell, I taste, I feel, touch, comes briefly like a flash, like fireflies blinking in the dark. It's gone. That is not Brahman. That is a reflection of Brahman. That's a borrowing of the awareness of Brahman. But this Brahman in itself is unlimited awareness, not coming and going. So unlimited awareness, unlimited existence, that itself, that unlimitedness of awareness existence is Ananda, is bliss, is fulfillment. Why do I say this? Because it's good to think of it that way, because otherwise, the moment we say Ananda or bliss, we seem to think of it as a feeling. So I will get a new kind of feeling and that is Brahman. No. Every feeling is a limitation of Brahman. Brahman in itself is not a feeling. If that sounds strange, how can Ananda, bliss, not be a feeling? Imagine, the existence itself. By existence, we do not mean an existing object, but the very existence of that object. By awareness, we do not mean a particular thought or a perception, but all thoughts and perceptions, they borrow awareness. Similarly, by Ananda, we do not mean a particular feeling of bliss, but that fullness, that unlimitedness, which is the source of all bliss, that completeness, which is the source of all bliss. Now, to remove a possible misconception, misapprehension, that are you saying then that after enlightenment I will not get unlimited bliss? No, there will be a feeling of continuous, there will be a feeling, I will not say continuous, but there will be a feeling of fulfillment. Thoughts will come and go, but there is always purnatvam, completeness, a fulfillment which cannot be disturbed, a peace that passeth understanding. Having attained which, nothing more remains to be attained. Being established in which, the greatest of sorrows cannot shake you. That is Anandam. And that's because of the unlimited nature of isness awareness.
This is from Balakrishna K. As per Vedanta, the world is an appearance in consciousness, and appearances are unreal, as they borrow existence from pure consciousness. My doubt is, in Dakshinamurti Stotram, the city is appearing in a mirror. For something to appear in a mirror, that object should exist. Only then can a mirror reflect it. How do we then say that appearances are unreal? Here the city is not borrowing its existence from the mirror, but the mirror proves that the city exists. Does not the appearance of something in the mind prove that something already exists, and pure consciousness is just revealing it? Just because we are experiencing through our mind, how does it prove that they are unreal and do not exist?
Right. So this is an ancient dualistic argument, Dvaita argument, going back more than 1,000 years. The questioner might think, no, I thought of it myself. We do, but others have thought the same thoughts like us in ancient ages also. Yes, when you think about Advaita, when you think about these examples, these questions, if you think about it seriously, these questions will come up. It's not that. So, we understand what the question is. In the Dakshinamurti Stotra, the example is given of a city seen in a mirror. And the immediate reaction would be, but there is a city outside. A mirror only reflects what's outside. So there is a city outside the mirror. It doesn't mean that the city is just a reflection in the mirror. There is a real city outside the mirror. The very fact of the reflection proves the reality of an external city. Similarly, if you are saying the world is an appearance in consciousness, just like the city appears in a mirror, then you just prove that there is a world outside. So it proves the reality of the world. So that's the question. So let's go back to the Dakshinamurti Stotram, which is a beautiful hymn written by Adi Shankaracharya, composed by Adi Shankaracharya maybe 1400 years ago. It goes, the first line is what he refers to. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyan atmani mayaya bahirivaudbhutam yatha nidraya. That's the first line. What it says is, Vishwam, the universe, is like a city. Darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam, is like a city seen in a mirror. Now, when you see a city in the mirror, just take that aspect, the mirror and the city seen in it. Notice, what do you see? You see streets and people and buildings, maybe birds flying in the sky, maybe a lake. All of that is seen from a distance. If there's a big city, you're standing on a hilltop and you have a mirror, you can see the whole city reflected in the mirror. Or when you cross the Brooklyn Bridge or George Washington Bridge and you come into Manhattan, you can see at night the Manhattan skyline shining, the lights of the buildings is shining in your driving mirror. You can see the building and the lights and the streets all shining, cars. But when you look closely, when you touch it, you don't touch buildings and cars and city and people and streets. You touch glass. It's just mirror. There is in fact no building there, no people there, no cars there, no streets there. It's just glass. It's a mirror. It's all throughout, though it looks like that. If the mirror is particularly shiny and clean, you won't even see the mirror. You'll just see a vivid city. But when you touch it, there's nothing but the glass. In fact, wherever there you are seeing people and buildings and cars and movement, there is nothing but the mirror and mirror only. The glass and glass only. People look, differences. Building is different from person. Person is different from car. But actually when you look there, it's the same mirror. No difference. It just looks like that. Similarly, in the mirror of consciousness, in the mirror of awareness, this unlimited awareness which is Brahman, appears this universe. Body, mind, thoughts, feelings. Notice he said that the world appears in the mind, not in the mind. The allusion is to, it says, Atmani, in consciousness, the self which is consciousness. In consciousness appears this universe, Vishwam. This universe appears like that. Just like when it is examined, the reflection in the mirror, you find nothing but glass, nothing but the mirror. If you examine this world, inquire, use Vedantic means of inquiring, you will find nothing but it has to be nothing but consciousness itself, appearing in all these ways. Fine, this is what is meant. But the question is different. The question is, but in the example, there is a world outside which is appearing in the mirror. You are right. In the mirror, there is nothing but the mirror, though it looks like a city. If you examine it, you will find only the mirror. But what about outside the mirror? There is the world, there is the city there. So similarly, why don't you say there is a world outside consciousness which is appearing in consciousness? Then forget all this, consciousness business and say there is a real world. And that's it. That's the dualistic question. Understanding that this could be a mistake, look at the next word that Shankaracharya uses, Nijantargatam, which means within oneself, not outside. Shankaracharya knows, immediately we'll make the mistake. Why do we make the mistake? We have to know how to properly use an example. An example is meant to prove only one thing. You should not take all aspects of the example. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Upama Ekdeshi. Example is meant to prove one thing and one thing only. When you say, as brave as a lion, do you mean the person is brave? If a lion is brave at all. So if a person is brave like a lion, you don't mean that he goes around on all fours and growls and pounces on you at the first excuse. No, you don't. You just mean the person is brave. Similarly, when you say the world is an appearance in consciousness, like a city seen in a mirror, you mean that much. You don't mean that there is a city outside, and so there's a world outside the consciousness. None of that is meant here. Only one point has to be taken. That's why, in the next line, he switches the example. Pashyan atmani mayaya yatha nidraya. He says, nijantargatam, within oneself. He switches the example to a dream. In the dream, you see a world, you see people, even you see yourself also. You are in your own dreams. You have forgotten that you are dreaming, you are sleeping. That's completely forgotten. Your real nature is forgotten, the waker, and now a dream world comes, and in that you are also there. And it looks like it's outside you. You are there in your dream, and you see people there, and they don't seem to be in your head. They seem to be out there. You're walking in the park. The park is outside you. Actually, where is it? It's all in you, the dreamer's head, in your mind. Yeah. But it appears outside. Bahiriva udbhuta, appearing as if outside. Shankaracharya says, as if, eva, outside. Why does that happen? Nidraya, because of sleep. Similarly, because of Maya, you, the consciousness, the entire world is experienced within you, including the body, including the mind. But it appears as if outside. Now what happens is, it seems that there is a real world, in that there is a real body, in that there is a mind, and in that there is consciousness. And that consciousness in the mind and body is experiencing a real physical world outside. That's what it looks like to us. What Shankaracharya is saying, that tiny little thing, consciousness which seems to be in the mind, is the real thing. And in consciousness is the mind, and the body, and the external world, just like a city seen in a mirror. The role that sleep plays in a dream, the same role Maya plays for consciousness and Brahman. If you don't like the mirror is a very beautiful example. In today's world, if you don't like the mirror example, you're saying, oh, there's a world outside the mirror, city outside the mirror, so there must be a world outside consciousness. Shankaracharya will, if today's world, he will switch the example. He will say, think of a movie screen, think of a computer screen, where you can see an entire movie, but there's nothing outside. It's being projected from the screen itself. Similarly, in the mirror of consciousness, a physical mirror, dull, dead matter like glass, it requires something outside to start reflecting. It requires light, it requires proper conditions of illumination, it requires an object outside, then only reflection is formed in the glass. But in the mirror of consciousness, it does not require anything outside. Because it's consciousness, it's aware. and it projects within itself. So that's the point. Whatever is experienced as if outside is actually within consciousness and is nothing other than consciousness. Just as whatever you see in the reflection in the image you see in the glass, in the mirror, is actually nothing but glass. It's not a physical reality outside. Okay.
This question is from Rama M. in 3 parts.
Oh, can you just hold on? One more thing I wanted to say about this reflection example. Why is it so easy to see that there is a reflection, that the reflection in the mirror means there's a city outside? Because you're thinking of seeing a mirror and there's a city and that's reflected in the mirror, and you are outside the whole thing. You can see the city, you can see the mirror, and you can see the reflection. Right? But that you can't do for consciousness. There is no outside to consciousness. Here is consciousness a mirror. There is a world. It's being reflected in consciousness. I can see both. I can see the world without the consciousness also. Not at all. You can never see a world outside consciousness. You can never see anything outside consciousness. You can never experience anything. How can you? You require consciousness for every experience. The definition of experience, very, very elegant definition of experience. Consciousness plus object is experience. So, there must be a consciousness plus object. But that object can never be proved without consciousness. It's always in consciousness. Consciousness illumining its own objects within itself is what we call experience.
So this is Rama M's 3-part question. How do I know if I'm progressing or regressing in my path to enlightenment? 2, how does one recognize an enlightened being? And 3, this is related to pratyahara, or withdrawal of senses from the external world. Could you give practical suggestions on how to practice pratyahara?
How does one know if one is progressing in spiritual life? Sri Ramakrishna is to give a simple definition. He would say, Vishaya Virag Ishwarya Anurag. That means a growing dispassion, neutrality, dispassion for the world. Our entire engrossment in the world. This is the source of my pleasure. And remember, whatever can give you pleasure can give you unhappiness also. The moment you give it the power to give you satisfaction, it can dissatisfy you. The power to give you happiness, it can make you unhappy. The more the power it has over you, if I get it, I'll really, really be happy. Be careful. What you are saying is, I'm going to be really, really unhappy. Until I get it, and after I get it. After it goes away. So, the gradual dispassion for the world loses its power over you. It really cannot do anything lasting for me. And therefore, if it cannot really do anything lasting for me, it cannot really make me unhappy also. It's not anything important to me. Am I depressed? No. All my love, same power of desire now flows towards God. Vishaya Virag, Ishwara Anurag. A dispassion for the world, a passion for God. If both are increasing, an increasing dispassion for the world, an increasing desire for God. This is in devotional language, in dualistic language. In non-dualistic language, passion for inquiry, that I must know this. Is this truth there? It's real. It's for me to know that, to realize I am Brahman. The world of appearance, I begin to see that it is an appearance. As appearance. See, good things in a movie, bad things in a movie. Pleasant things in a movie, like a horror movie, scary things in a movie. Because it's a movie, good and bad, pleasant, unpleasant, horrible and attractive, are at one level they're all the same. Because they are not real. They may give different kinds of aesthetic experience, but as far as reality is concerned, you have the equal disregard for all of them. If you see very nice things in a movie, you don't want to pick some of those away from the movie, put it in your bag and walk out of the movie hall. If you see horrible, scary things in a movie, unless you're a little kid, you won't want to run away from them because you know they are not there. So what is in a movie can neither pull you ultimately, really speaking, nor can it repel you, really speaking, except in an aesthetic sense. Similarly, a dispassion for the world. That is from a non-dualistic perspective, and an inquiry. I must find out the reality of this movie. I am told that I am this infinite being. I don't feel it. I don't understand it. Let me see. That is a sign of progress in spiritual life. A more practical sign of progress in spiritual life, a very great teacher of Vedanta said that over time you will notice your reactions to the world decrease. Your reactions decline to the world. In what sense? The negative reactions, anger, depression, irritation, passion, jealousy, worldly ambition, unhappiness about things in the world, all of them, they will decline in frequency, intensity, and recovery time. Frequency, they won't happen. Depression, I used to get depressed every month or every week. It won't happen so much. Once in a while I may feel, but not so often. Frequency will go down. Of all the negativities, frequency will go down. It will not disappear immediately. That's the whole point of progress. Intensity will go down. Earlier it used to be deep depression. Now just feel a twinge of unhappiness. Good. Earlier I used to fly into a rage. Now it's a flash of irritation. Good, that's progress. And recovery time, that will also go down. Earlier, a depression or an anger, a feeling of anger would last for hours or days and weeks. And now it comes and goes. Maybe I feel it, but it's gone after some time. It's there. It was there in the morning. By afternoon, I'm fine. It's just gone. Good, that's progress. The negativities, it will not be as frequent. It will not be as intense, and you will recover from it much faster. You will get out of that much faster. Sign of progress. Then, how do you recognize enlightened being? You can't. Yeah. But that's not entirely true. Whosever company reminds you of God, uplifts your mind, that's a sign. I don't know if it's an enlightened being, but definitely a spiritually very advanced being. Let's be conservative about being enlightened. Let's be not be in a hurry to say somebody is enlightened, especially I am enlightened. One monk put it very nicely. If a person is enlightened and doesn't claim to be enlightened, there's no harm done. But if a person is not enlightened and claims to be enlightened, a lot of harm is done to the one's own spiritual progress first and foremost, and to other people also. So it's better not to claim to be enlightened or even to claim other people are enlightened. But spiritually advanced, one gets, there are certain signs. One is that upliftment you will feel in the company of such persons. I have seen such persons. Just their presence. They don't even have to give a talk. They don't have to do ask Swami question answer like I'm doing. You just be in the presence, maybe exchange a few words, or just be there. You will feel uplifted. You will feel purified, like you have taken a bath. That's one sign of a spiritually advanced person. Person who inspires you in spiritual life. Swami Vivekananda also gave a criterion of strength. Does it strengthen you, the company of the person, the teaching of that person, or does it make you more dependent? If it strengthens you, true spirituality is there. It makes you more spiritual. Pratyahara. So I'll end with that. Pratyahara is a stage in the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali. In Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, 8 limbs, Yama and Niyama, the first 2 are disciplines, moral and ethical disciplines, do's and don'ts. Then there is asana, sitting, a steady posture for meditation. Pranayama, the control of the breath, regulation of the prana through the breath, which calms down the mind. Then comes pratyahara, withdrawal from the world outside. And then there is dharana, focus, dhyana, meditation, and samadhi, complete absorption. So these are the 8 limbs of yoga. That pratyahara is withdrawal from the external, that's the crucial thing, where from external things you come inwards. Before that, moral practices and sitting and breath control, they are to do with the external world and the body. But pratyahara is now you're coming into the mind. You are shutting down the senses and turning the mind inwards. So how do you do that? With the eyes, one can shut the eyes. But then how do you shut You need earplugs maybe, but how do you shut down the skin and the taste? And it's not physical shutting down which is meant here. What is meant here is the mind shouldn't flow outwards through the sense organs. The question is good because not much discussion is there about pratyahara in our text as far as I know. So what it meant here is that the mind shouldn't flow into the world outside through the sense organs. So a turning away of the mind. It can be done at different levels. One important way, powerful way, is bhakti, devotion. Devotion to God. The mind goes where the heart is. So what I want and what I love. So I love my Lord whom I am visualizing in the heart. So my attention will go there and the senses will no longer pull me outside. You can strengthen that. You can put a no admission sign in your heart that no admission of anything from the world outside until I'm done with meditation. And that helps in pratyahara. So turning the mind inwards by the pull of love of God. Bhakti helps a lot. A Vedantic approach to pratyahara is this. Tell your mind strongly, O mind, nothing in the world outside, there is nothing that can please me, nothing that I want. Anything that the mind can bring through the sense organs into itself. Sights, sounds, taste, smell, touch. I am not interested in any of that. Whatever you can supply me with, oh mind, I am not interested in any of that. And what I am interested in, the witness consciousness, I am the self, that you cannot supply me with. So you are shutting down the mind both ways. What the mind can do for you, I'm not interested. Whatever you can do, whatever thought, perception you can bring to me, I'm not interested. And what I am interested in, you can't bring it. It's beyond your range. It's beyond the capacity of the mind. You will see the mind calms down, senses also will calm down immediately. When you strongly drive this thought into the mind. The mind will keep offering you, see this. You close your eyes. Hear this. Or feeling, mosquito buzzing around. The whole mind will go there. Which normally you may ignore. But in times of meditation, in the slightest stimulus, little sound, the mind will go there. Maybe somebody else is meditating near you. I've seen that happening. Meditating, and somebody just in front of me, another monk, swallowing loudly. Like this. And the mind gets irritated. Because of that monk swallowing, I can't meditate. As if you could meditate with if everybody was silent. If you were put in a deep silent chamber, you would go into samadhi. You wouldn't. It's the mind's mischief, which immediately takes up some object, either attractive or unpleasant or disturbing or something, and tries to go on thinking about it. No, nothing you can think about is of any use to me. Then the mind will try another kind of mischief. Okay, what is it that is of interest to you? Maybe I can supply that. You're interested in Vedanta, in the pure consciousness? All right, let's think about pure consciousness. Here are the different theories, the books that we have read, the talks that we have heard. No. I am not interested in your theories, in your talks, in your memories, in your arguments, pro, for and against. No. The moment you give in to one of them, it will immediately lead you step by step into the world outside again. That's the very nature of the mind. Whatever you can supply me with, not interested. What I am interested in, you cannot supply me with that. This is a technique from the Yoga Vashishta. The mind will keep quiet. And then you are free of the mind. The senses immediately become silent. When the mind gets this kind of treatment, the senses are the servant of the mind. They become quiet also. Like our master is in trouble. We better keep quiet. Very good. Thank you so much. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. I pray to the Lord, to Divine Mother, to protect all of us, keep us safe and bless us.